Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motorcast. It's your host, Dave. Special guest on the line, drag racer Don Finley. How you doing, Don?
Doing great. How you doing, Dava?
Dave. It's Dave, not Dava.
It's not.
Dave.
I was on your webpage today, and you said Dava.
No, it's Dave.
I'm going to call you Dava. Anyway.
All right. Anyway.
All right, Dave. I'll play your little game.
So, Don, you're gonna be coming out with a new car next year, huh?
That's right. We're in a rebuilding year this year, Dave. We had a yellow Corvette funny car gasser, and I sold it at the beginning of the year. We restored it with the intention of selling it, and I restored it and sold it, and we bought this car with the intention of keeping it and racing it.
And is this Keith Jackson's old car?
It is. The chassis is Keith Jackson's old car. It's exactly right, and which is the former Hawaiian Punch, Hawaiian Vacation chassis. At least the back half of it is. Keith had front halved it several times. He did that on a regular basis. I think that nitro car probably has a tendency to twist the front end of the chassis, so they re-front half those every couple of years, I think.
So what part of the year next year you think this car will be ready to go?
I'm hoping to be at Funny Car Chaos in the end of May to debut the car there. We'll probably do some testing here locally. I have an airport, Dave, that I can do some testing at, and there are a couple of events here in Colorado. I'm in Colorado, so there's a couple of events here in April, test and tune sessions in May that I may be able to get out to, but essentially right there at the end of May, 1st of June, the Nostalgia Nationals are right after that Funny Car Chaos race, and they're here at Vandermeer Speedway.
Now, you said you could be run on alcohol, right?
Depending on where we are, yes. When I'm at Vandermeer, there really isn't a class for injected funny cars. To be honest, in the NHRA program or the Heritage program, Vandermeer kind of follows those heritage rules out there. And the VDRA, the Vintage Drag Racing Association here, doesn't allow any nitro in their classes. So when we run with those guys and when we run at Vandermeer, it will be an injected alcohol car. That's right. When we come to Funny Car Chaos, we're just going to let them guess what we're running down there.
Yeah, that's
the deal, right?
That's the neat thing about.
Fuel goes down there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the neat thing about Chaos. What if, as long as it's got a funny car body on it, you can bring it.
You can bring it.
Yep.
Have you been to any of the Funny Car Chaos races, Dave?
No, I have not. Unfortunately, I mean, the closest one to me would be the one in Illinois, Central Illinois Dragway.
Yep. That's what I was thinking of. I didn't know how close you were to that one.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5 hour drive.
Yeah, we're a little bit closer. Amarillo here is, I'm thinking a 4-hour drive, maybe 5 hours. Very similar.
Yeah, Chris Graves and Chris and Tara, they've been doing a great job with that Funny Car Chaos.
I totally agree. I just am so thrilled about that. If you've seen me on Facebook and sharing their videos and making pics that are crazy that are nowhere near realistic about it, and I've enjoyed it immensely. I'm an old guy that grew up around barnstorming, Coca-Cola cavalcade of funny cars and match racers and that era, and I just love that Funny Car Chaos thinking.
Yeah, it kind of brings back the feeling of the old days when you had a big field of funny cars.
Yeah, it does, and they got 32 cars. I think it's the last show, and I was emailing with Chris, and I'm just waiting for the day when they have a 64 car field, like they had a couple times back in the day.
Yeah, because my dad started taking me to drag racing. I was like 4 or 5, going to Great Lakes Dragway in Wisconsin, and then US 30 drag strip, which closed down in the 80s over there in Indiana. Seeing all the big guys coming in there, Snake Mongoose, saw them. Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, oh yeah. Don Garlitz.
I come from Oklahoma originally, and back in the 60s and 70s. And we used to go from Oklahoma City to Dallas is only about a little over 200 miles, so it's not that big of a shot to run from Oklahoma City to Dallas. So when I was growing up, I had access to probably a half a dozen drag strips or more that I could go watch races at. Very fortunate. And we'd go to Green Valley Raceway down near Dallas, and we'd go to a couple of tracks there in Oklahoma City, and just grew up around it. My brother owned a pair of auto parts stores in Moore, Oklahoma, and he's a few years older than me, and my first job was working for him at his parts store, and he sponsored a couple of race cars out of there, a circle track car and a couple of drag cars. One of them was a pro stock out of Oklahoma City. It wasn't ever very successful, but some of the super stock cars that he sponsored were very successful, and I just grew up around guys that were winning, and it looked pretty easy to me. And then I got out there, when you get to be a teenager and you get your own car and you find out how hard it is.
So when did you first start drag racing? When you were a teenager?
Yeah, when I went to college at 17, my parents bought me a 1970 and a half Z28 Camaro. They're kind of rare now. I wish I had it, but bought me a 70 and a half Z28 Camaro, and I went out to Council Road Drag Strip, Sand Valley Drag Strip there in Oklahoma City. It's no longer there, but I went out there and around some drag racers, and they were friends of my brother's, obviously, and they were teaching me how to leave on the tree and how to figure this whole thing out. They would hit the back of my car with a broom when it was time to leave on the tree. That's how I learned to leave on the Christmas tree. I was so slow. But the third or fourth race I entered out there, I ended up runner-upping in with that Camaro. And at that time, they would run the box score in the Oklahoma City Times paper. And my dad saw that on Saturday, on the Sunday paper, he saw that I runner-upped and won $50 with that car. And that kind of ended my drag racing days with that car for a little while.
So what happened after that? You got back in that car again later on?
we raced that car I did for a little while, and I sold it. And a friend of mine down there in Oklahoma had a front engine dragster that I was involved with, and a 55 Chevy. That Oklahoma has a lot of street racing roots, and I grew up with my roommate having a 55 Chevy with a high winding small block in it and 557 rear end gears and a stick, a Chrysler 4-speed behind a 265 Chevy that he would spend to about $9,000. And he'd go out street racing with that thing back in those days. And I think that car probably, if I remember right on the track, it was a mid-11 second car, which in those days was a fast car on the street. But run that car, and then I moved to Colorado as an adult here in the 70s and got to know the Bandemiers pretty early in those days. Johnny Bandemier Jr., I've known him since about 76 or 77, and had a couple of different bracket cars through the years. Grew up kind of with bracket racing. Brett Kepner was a huge influence on me with his Mr. Dirt series about bracket racing. And if anybody wants to learn about bracket racing, there is no better source than, you have to dig to find it, but the Mr. Dirt series, where he went out and beat electronics cars with a foot brake Corvette and just showed everybody how to do it, how it's done. And so I learned the bracket racing from that, and was inspired by that. And then we had a junior fuel car, a Nostalgia Dragster in 2000 to 2003. Right in there, we had a junior fuel car that my son drove, who was a 1996 junior dragster NHRA Division 5 champion here in Colorado. We got involved with junior dragsters for many years. There's no better, in my opinion. I grew up playing baseball and football and all the sports as a kid, but to me, there's nothing more pure than a family racing against other families, and what that builds amongst family members, and being able to compete that way as a family. There's not many opportunities where you can go compete as a family. You can go watch one of your kids play, or one of the parents can be in a bowling league or something, but the idea that you can go as a family and compete at the track, trade drivers. You know, you could have more than one driver in a lot of these cars. In fact, that's what we're going to do. My son Ryan will be sharing the driver duties in this the Lehigh Missile Corvette funny car that we're putting together here. So that's one of the beautiful things that I learned about drag racing early on was, you know, and through junior drag racing, what a great way for a family to spend their time and energy. Junior drag racing. It's gotten very expensive, but that's kind of the nature of the sport.
So now, how many years did your son do the junior dragster for?
From let's see, 1995 until I'm going to say 99. Right in there, 2000, Dave, and he got too big. We moved him into the big car at 16. He could have driven another 2 years of junior dragsters, but we moved him into the big car at 16 because he got to be a pretty big boy. And you can buy a small block Chevy crate motor for what you can buy one of those junior dragster motors for, I'm telling you.
So you moved him into the Missile?
He drove, it was called we called it the Long Shot, and it was a 213-inch Sterling chassis, front engine dragster, ran a nostalgia dragster. Wasn't ever very competitive. We ran up here high altitude. He ran mid-eights with it here. Those cars now, those A nostalgia cars are running high sixes, I believe. But it was a great experience for him and for us with that car. I loved the front engine car, and so did he. We ended up selling that car in about 2004. Just some changes in the family and different things. And I don't like keeping a car in the garage. They either need to be raced or sold. My way of thinking.
So now, after you got rid of that car, what happened?
Well, we built that yellow Corvette in 2017. Got back into it. I've restored Corvettes and sold them for a few years, and kind of flipped Corvettes a little bit as far as the car world goes. And we did it. As far as drag racing goes, we did a lot of spectating for a few years there. But like with everybody's life, it kind of creeps back in. And so we built this yellow Corvette. It was a 68 Corvette gasser that was original. It was built in Kansas, out in Laredo, Kansas, near Wichita, and in '69. And what had happened to that car was there were two of them built, and I don't know whatever happened to the mold, but there were stock wheelbase cars that the mold was built from a Corvette that was damaged unloading it at a Chevy dealership in Laredo, Kansas. And the other car ended up with, I believe, the Chance family of Chance torque converters. They have the sister car to that car, and we restored the other car, put it back into shape as a gasser. But current gasser rules don't allow for center steer. That car had the steering wheel in the middle of the car, and gassers require the steering wheel to be on the left nowadays. There was a period in the early 70s when AHRA rules particularly were looser, and there were a lot of gassers that had center steer, and this was one of them. But today, the gasser rules are pretty pure, so I couldn't run with the gasser class, and it wasn't really ever meant to be a nitro funny car. The chassis wouldn't cert for that at all. But even after we restored it, it would have taken a whole new chassis under it. So we named that the Misfit Missile, because it was a misfit. It wouldn't fit into any class, really. And we ran with the Vintage Drag Racing Association here in their center steer class. And we took it out to 12 races, went to 6 final rounds, and won the last 2 races in a row with the car. And then it sold. And it's up in Wyoming right now. A guy owns it up there. And then we decided, what are we going to do? And we discussed several different things. And I kind of had the funny car bug and kind of overruled my wife and a little bit and son a little bit. And Keith, this car became available. Timing is, sometimes the way it is. And this car became available in chassis. And I thought, boy, what a neat deal. So I picked it up from Keith, but it didn't have a body on it because, as you know, Keith retained his 78 Challenger body and put a new chassis under it that he built. And And so I needed a body. So I found a body out in New Jersey. A guy named Ben Griffin out there had a Corvette body for sale, and I bought that. I bought that from Ben Gregory. I'm sorry, I said Griffin, but Ben Gregory out in New Jersey. He owns a company called Rolling Chassis out there. I got that body from him, put it on Keith's chassis. That body was originally, I'm sitting next to it. This body was originally the Risky Business Corvette back in the early 90s, and Randy Jens drove this car. So I've mated those two together. We mounted the body on the chassis. We're going to run a big block Chevy that'll be provided here by Denver Engine and Transmission here in Denver. And primary goal with this car, Dave, is what we did with the yellow car. We used it to raise money for the USO. You know, one of the things while we're out there at the track, I figured you can do something besides racing, and we did that with our junior dragsters too, to bring a little something else to the party. And for us, it's the USO. I found out recently, I don't know if you know this, I'm not trying to do a big commercial here, but I thought the USO was funded by the federal government, that they got money from the government to do all of the things they do for the troops, Bob Hope and all of that business. Well, they don't. They're a nonprofit that doesn't get any money from the government. And when we found that out, I thought, what a great opportunity for us to help raise money for something that it does a lot of things for the troops. And since we've hooked up with them, we have a 2-year contract now for 2020 and 2021 with them, and we'll be raising money for them and trying to get exposure for them, like you're helping me do, to let people know that your local USO depends on them. They don't get money from anywhere else, and go support your local USO. Thank you for letting me say that.
Oh, no problem. So now with the Misfit Missile, what was the fastest time you've had with that car?
I think it went 11:07 here at altitude, so I think it would have been a mid 10-second car. It was a 10-second and slower chassis, so that's where the chassis would start. We ran it on gasoline, a real mild combination. So, but it was very consistent. We could go out, and the Vintage Drag Racing Association here utilizes dial your own indexing. So, and you can change it every round. It's pure bracket racing. The Nostalgia Eliminator Series at Julesburg, which is the oldest track in Colorado, one of the oldest in the country, if not the oldest. It's an active airport still, by the way, the Julesburg drag strip. It went a little faster out there. That's where it went 11:07 was out there at Julesburg. So we ran mostly between those two places.
Now, did you and Ryan share the driving duties of that car?
No, Ryan didn't want to drive that car. It had a lay-down style. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how I described it to people, but I would describe it to you as driving a car on a gurney.
Wow.
But so it was a real lay-down style, and that 10-second, I've driven faster cars, but that was about as fast as I wanted to go in that car, looking through your feet. It's a little different deal. I have a lot of. I saw a video on Facebook the other day of a guy driving a go-kart, hydrogen-powered go-kart. He's 80 years old, and he drove a hydrogen-powered go-kart to a 480 in the 8th mile. Okay, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Especially in a hydrogen. I have no desire to do that. That's too close to the ground and too fast on a go-kart for me. But this car should exceed that. But I'm not laying down looking between my feet in this car. This is Mark McKinney chassis and very comfortable, and it's got all the ISP foam seat and all that stuff in it. So this is totally a big show car.
All right. So now, Don, do you have any drag racing heroes?
Drive any what? Drag racing what?
Heroes.
Heroes. I do. I do. I mentioned Brett Kepner.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them. He's just a really neat guy, and I've learned a lot from him. But I do have some drag racing heroes. One guy that I grew up admiring, nobody will know who it is, but my family and people I was around, as I mentioned with my brother, his name was Jerry Mathis. And I learned about how to act up the track and winning and losing and how hard this is and lot of the professionalism of giving back. I learned a lot of that stuff from just a simple sportsman racer named Jerry Mathis, who was a former NHRA Superstock national record holder. But currently today, and then later, or earlier in my life, I'm sorry. Of course, everybody's a jungle fan. I'm a big Jungle Jim Lieberman fan and always have been. I've pressed my face up against the fence to see them many, many times. In those days, in the Superstock pits, you didn't always get up to go watch the fuel cars when they ran, believe it or not. The door cars and the fuel cars didn't always watch each other run. And we would stay in the pits sometimes during a session of fuel cars running because you're involved with a Superstock car. Well, when Jungle came to the line, everybody has their face pressed up against the fence. And that's one of my heroes. I mean, and today, there's no bigger hero than John Force. We were here at the Mile High Nationals this year, and we were able to watch John Force. Nobody could see this, unless you're looking in his pit area, and we were standing outside his pit area, but shares his time and energy with the family of one of the kids and boys who were killed in one of the shootings here in Colorado, and he had a connection to John Force. John Force was his hero, and John took the turn to bring his entire family out there to the Mile High Nationals and spend time with them. There was no fanfare about it. There was nobody really knew about it. But we saw it, and we knew who they were. And there's no greater hero than that guy if you're looking for one in drag racing today.
So how did you feel about when he got the 150th career win?
That was pretty cool. I like to see the old guys go. I'm 66, so go old guys.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing seeing him jump the fence to go see the fans, and he fell down, but at least he made it.
I know. Yeah, he hobbled over there and climbed the fence. I think that was really, really cool. That's where he went first, to be with his peeps.
Then how he kissed Ron Capps on the lips.
Yeah, we're gonna miss him when he's gone.
Oh yeah. No.
But we're excited to get out there with this car next year. We've got all winter. We're putting together sponsors. This is the time of the year. I can't do this without help. I literally can't do it without help. It takes a lot to put one of these cars together. Even a small time operation like us, it takes a lot. And I admire these guys that roll in there with these big operations. This is, my goodness, you really have to want to do this to spend that kind of money. And it takes support from people, like I mentioned earlier, that people that provide me with engines like Denver Engine and Transmission, and our insurance company, that we get all of our insurance for our home and cars and everything. I invited them to come on board the car. American Family Insurance will be a part of this deal next year. So it's really exciting, and this is the time of the year when you put that kind of stuff together and you make 1,000 phone calls and you get 10 yeses.
Well, at least you got a few sponsors on board.
We do, and that's critical. And I've got more thinking, and we've got a welder here that has helped us immensely with our car, and he doesn't charge us for a lot of the things he does here. His name's Boyd, and he has a portable welding shop here in Denver, and he goes around, and he doesn't have to help us, but he does. And we have a company that's going to do our T-shirts for us. I'll donate $5 from each one of our $20 shirts to the USO. And so Instant Imprints up in Louisville, Colorado, is providing us with all of our T-shirts to do that with. So we're really grateful, and thank you for letting me mention them. It's really important. Drag racing right now, some teams are losing sponsors. This is not the easiest time in the world to be out there beating on their door compared to other years and other decades when I've been out there looking for sponsors. There was a time when all the cigarette companies were in, all the beer companies were in, all the pop companies, soda companies were in, and these are different times. The teams that make it through this, I really admire the Big Jim Dunn's team. You look at that team. They may have a different sponsor every week, but look how many people and corporate people they're introducing to drag racing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I admire them, and then you've got teams like Schumacher and others that, you're such a big operation that how do you find a sponsor that big? That's a difficult deal. I've sold sponsorships for an ARCA team before, and it's not an easy deal.
Yeah, I can't believe they still haven't found a sponsor for Tony Schumacher yet.
I can't either. But especially considering that I believe they knew that deal was coming to an end, and you had a long time out there to work for it. But it's at the same time when I'm being honest with you, I went to the Mile High Nationals this year. I've never been there on a Sunday when spectator side bleachers were a little over half full. And so this is going to be a time when NHRA and other sanctioning bodies like Dallas Browns, AHRA, that's trying to resurge. And I'm not sure what's going on with the IHRA right now. I haven't followed them, but these are interesting times. I lived through the times when the PRO organization was mad and had a race on the same weekend as Indy in Tulsa. And a lot of the big name racers went there. Don Garlits formed that race, and they were called National Challenge races. And it was 1971, 72, and 73 in Tulsa. And I was at those races, and it was amazing to have a race on the same weekend as Indy to make a statement.
Yeah, a lot of my latest interviews, I've been talking about how I've been watching Facebook live videos from different tracks and seeing a lot of empty seats in the stands these days.
Yeah, and yet the Funny Car Chaos race pulls in 32 funny cars. Mile High Nationals, we had 15 top fuelers and 15 funny cars. I'm not sure about this. I think they had a short field at Indy as well. That's got to be very concerning. But at the same time, the fans are hungry for that barnstorming, run what you brung, nostalgia feel with personalities and less corporate influence and backup girls and smoky burnouts and
dry hops,
unpredictability and dry hops, all of that jazz. The show, we've kind of forgotten maybe in the modern day corporate world of racing that this is a show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
So we're going to try to put on a good show for you. Next year we'll have backup girls. I may not have the smokiest burnouts, but we're going to try. And I'll air those tires up till they do smoke. And so we'll be competitive when we do go somewhere. And we may not be competitive at Funny Car Chaos, but we'll be competitive somewhere at Funny Car Chaos because they keep adding fields. And we'll probably be in the F field, but we're going to be there. We're going to be there.
Now you're going to be doing some dry hopping?
Yes. I'm going to challenge that Ballou kid.
Yeah, Jordan.
Nobody's challenged Jordan Ballou. What's the deal? He just has that title. They just give it to him. Here you go. Dry hop king. There you go. Yeah, he seems like a really good kid, and they all seem like a real family out there. It'd be a privilege to run with those guys.
Now, for you, who are your crew members that keep the car running? Is it your family?
Yeah, mostly just my wife and son. I'll trade off on crew chief and driving duties with Ryan, our son, and my wife Kristen will handle all of the stuff outside of the car when that's going on with backup girls, sponsor activities, hospitality, all of that jazz, and manage the budget and all of those things and keep me in line.
So now, when you're on the track, Don, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't know you were going to come up with that one. Well, you're supposed to get in the car from the left side, so I do. I try to honor that tradition of not getting in the car from the wrong side. I do probably put some things on in a certain order. I'm a former baseball player that used to not change his socks when I'm on a winning streak. So probably, I don't know what they are. It's a routine that I try to just stick to the same time. I try not to think of it as superstitious, but I'll tell you when I lose, I'll say it's because I didn't do one of those things right.
Now, now let me ask you this: when you
Yeah,
first time you ever went down a track when you were a teenager, what was the
yeah.
experience? What was the experience like going on a drag race track for the first time ever?
It was really exciting. I'm sure. That car, that car was a little bit scary in that it had, two four barrels on it that stuck up through the hood. It was a 70 and a half Camaro that we bought in '71, but it had been massaged. It had a big block Chevy stuffed in it. It said C28, but they didn't come with big blocks, and it had a 427 Chevy in it with a cross ram intake off a boat with two 660 center squirters on it and a 4-speed, and it would run 13s. It wasn't crazy, but for a 17-year-old, from Choctaw, Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere, it was a pretty scary ride. I remember the scariest for me was when I first bought the car and brought it home, and they told me to baby it because they had rebuilt the motor, and you need to do not race or hot rod this car around for about the first 3 months. So I took it down to my big brother, who I already told you owns a parts store and sponsors race cars. So I'm 16 years old, 17 years old, and I take it down to him to show him my really cool 70 and a half Camaro that we have to baby. And I let him drive it, and the first thing he does is pull out on people that live in Oklahoma, if they're listening at all, will know Telephone Road in Moore, Oklahoma, which now is kind of busy, but then wasn't. And he proceeded to just put it to the wood and power shift all 4 gears. And I'd never sat in a car with somebody speed shifting in those days yet. That was my first experience with not lifting off the gas when you shift. And he put it through all 4 gears, and my eye and my jaw was on the floor. My eyes were huge, and that was scary to me. When I went down the track, was probably less scary because I'd already gone through that with my big brother trying to kill me, and we lived way out in the country, fortunately, and there was a oil and gravel road out there that I could go do burnouts on and practice before I went to the track. My only problem when I went to the track was I was super slow on the tree. I thought you were supposed to wait for that green light like you did in town at stoplight.
Now, what was the experience like the first time driving the Misfit Missile?
That was pretty cool. I ran it in the sand trap at Vandermeer. Even though it wasn't that fast of a car, it was one of the first cars I built in a long time, and it had disc brakes on the rear. It had drum brakes on the rear. It had a 8 3/4 Chrysler rear end in it that they used out of a '57 Chrysler Imperial. And so we put a spool and good axles and everything in it, but it had brand new drum brakes on it. And the drum brakes would hold the car in gear sitting in the driveway and on the starting line, and it did fine. But when I went down the track the first time, and at Vandermeer, just so you know, that after the finish line, it's uphill. I actually had to give it gas to go up the hill. The very first run, I ran it in high gear only and eased it down the track. I think it went like a 13 something at around 80 or 90 miles an hour. And I had to actually give it gas to get up the hill. But then when it came time to make the left turn onto the return road exit, there weren't any brakes, and I wasn't going to make that return road at all. So I hit the sand at probably, 30 or 40 miles an hour, enough to be really, really embarrassing. Go out there about 30 or 40 feet, and they had to come pull me out of it. So we took the car home and worked on the brakes and took it to my secret testing place, which is an airport near Denver here, and got the brakes good and seated. Next time we went to Vandermeer, we runner-ups.
So now, what are some of your favorite tracks to run on?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I love Julesburg because it's really old, and it's an active airport, as I mentioned. There's no guardrail there, so they're limited to an 850 and slower ET in the quarter mile. But it's a very, very unique place to go race. I love, Vandermeer Speedway is a big track, and it's really cool in that it's a big track, and everything is there, and you get to go play big racer there in a big crowd. My favorite track outside of back in the old days in Oklahoma, I can't count those. Um, my favorite track with recent cars would be Douglas, Wyoming, which is closed right now. They closed it and they're never going to reopen it, I say right now. Douglas, Wyoming was a wonderful track, and those people in the Denver area that have ever raced up there, everyone said the same thing. You may have never been there before, but you roll in with your car and you would swear you just rolled into your family's driveway. When we went up there with our A Nostalgia car, we had a flat tire on one of our time trial runs in the rear, and we drove back to Denver and got another pair of tires and slicks and brought them up to Douglas, and the track owner went over to the Goodyear store and had them open the store at 10 o'clock at night, mount our tires for us. We go out the next day. They wouldn't let us pay an entry fee because they said, no, you only got one time run yesterday, so you don't get to pay for today. And not that you should get free stuff but I'm just talking about the level of hospitality.
Right.
That they truly appreciated the racers being there. They truly appreciated people driving up from Denver to experience their track. And it was a very, very cool place to race. I'll never forget Douglas, Wyoming, for sure. Green Valley Raceway in Texas. I never raced there. I was a crew member there a couple times on my roommate's car I told you about, but I never went down the track there. But what a historic raceway that Green Valley Raceway is today. And I still have a T-shirt from 1974 from Green Valley Raceway. I saw a lot of big time cars there. Gene Snow there the first time. I saw Jungle there the first time. A lot of historic cars at that Green Valley Raceway.
Yeah, it always sucks when we lose a old time track.
It does, and there's several here in the Denver area, that are gone and no longer there, and no chance of ever recovering them.
That's what I say. So support your local track.
Support your local racetrack and support your local racer. And it's really tough. I couldn't imagine trying to build a racetrack today. What it would take. Maybe in Wyoming, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your
Maybe that's where I'll put my track.
So what's your preference, Don? Quarter mile or eighth mile racing?
I've always said quarter mile. I've only done a little bit of eighth mile. The juniors, of course, were eighth mile. But I'm really looking forward to the Finley Car Chaos eighth mile deal. And I would have loved to have had the yellow car, the Misfit Missile, out in an eighth mile track. I like the idea of eighth mile racing, especially with nitro cars and stuff, because you get everything except broken parts as much, and not as many crashes, which I'm thankful for. So I love the eighth mile deal with the nitro cars. I think it provides as good a show, nearly as the faster cars for people that don't get to see drag racing in nitro cars a lot. It's a great opportunity for them. And while we're saying this, let me thank you for. I think it's a great little thing you're doing here with the show that you have to expose people out there that listen to it, racers and fans that listen to this, to racers that and musical artists that they may have never heard, probably have never heard of before. You've done some big names like Bob Tasca and others, but you also have done people like me who are nobodies, and really applaud you for that, for just bringing people out and exposing them so other fans and other people can get to know them a little bit. That's what grows the sport, and thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I try to do my best to support drag racing.
Yeah, I can see that. You do. Do you have a car?
No.
No?
Yeah, a regular car to drive around in, yeah, but not a race car.
Come to Denver and I'll let you help me with mine.
Yeah, maybe one day. So.
Okay.
So where do you get all your fire safety equipment from, Don?
I'm sorry, would you say that again?
I said, where do you get all your fire safety equipment from, like your fire suit and stuff like that?
Oh, we have a Simpson suit, and we'll probably be getting. I'm looking at an impact helmet. Right now, I've just got a Zamp helmet, one of those Zamp helmets. But you know, probably usually set. I don't have anybody set really. I kind of just shop around. To be honest with you, I know DJ Safety makes good equipment. I know Stroud company in Oklahoma makes really good equipment, and of course Simpson is the industry benchmark. And so I don't have anyone. I'm a bargain shopper, Dave.
Okay. Do you have a most embarrassing moment on the track?
Most embarrassing, yes, I do. It was really when I put that yellow car in the beach at about 30 miles an hour. How can it get more embarrassing than that? You're only going 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You should have been able to just drag your foot and stop the car or something. At least hit the beach at 100 or 150 if you're going to put it in the sand, for God's sakes, Don. So that was pretty embarrassing. I got out of the car pretty irritated. I think that may be the most embarrassed I've ever been on the track.
You were saying drag your foot and stop it. I was thinking about the Flintstones.
Right? I know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So,
That's me. Yabba dabba do.
so now, as far as the sport of drag racing, do you have a bucket list of anything you still want to do in drag racing?
Yes. I think we've touched on it. I think Chris Graves' name has been brought up a couple times, but I do. I'd like to compete at one of those Funny Car Chaos races. I'd like to go down there and at least be a part of it. I say compete, at least be a part of it. If we end up qualifying and somebody broke beside us and we won first round, that would be really cool. But that would be really something. I don't have any lofty goals with it. It's a hobby. Being out there really accomplishes the goal. Being able to do this for me, just being able to go out there and do this. I think every time I line up, seriously, I want to win every time we can. And we won the last two races that we've been at in a row, and I don't want that to not continue. But as you know, and I know in drag racing, if you're relying on winning to have a good time, it's going to be a tough day a lot of days. And so have a good time first and be professional and give it your best, and it'll all shake out.
All right. So, what's been the fondest memory of your drag racing career, Don?
Oh, that was pretty good last year, winning the last two races back to back. That meant something to me because that car had kind of been rejected. It had been pretty well rejected everywhere I had tried to go with it, and it was really satisfying to be able to go and compete and not only get it out there, but compete and beat the series champion, in the final race of the year, and win that race. It meant a lot. That meant a lot. I've won some things before, but that meant a lot. I'd say in our family, my son winning the 1995 Junior Dragster Championship, Division 5 was pretty big. That was pretty special. His first year, he was 9 years old, and to go out and win a Wally in days when they didn't do Wallies for bracket races and a lot of other deals. It was really, really hard to get a Wally in 1995. They didn't have special races for them the way they do today, and I'm glad they do. More people have an opportunity to win one. But that was pretty, that's about as special as it gets.
Awesome. Well, Don, I want to thank you very much for taking time to do the interview.
Hey, thank you, man. As I said, I really appreciate what you're doing and everything that you have done to promote the sport and promote the people. And I really appreciate you. I thank my wife, Kristen, and my son, Ryan, and Keith Jackson's helped me a lot. And all my sponsors, USO Denver and Bullet Automotive and American Family, Denver Engine and Transmission, Instant Imprints, and Race Cars Only. I need you guys, and thank you. And thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it. Love your show.
Oh, you're welcome. And I wish you the best of luck with that new car next year.
Come to Denver.